part 21 of sharing my story on here because it's so much easier than writing another book, because books take a lot of work. So I am like at the beginning of falling into this spiritual psychosis, and Reed being like this authority over me, like I'm falling into this role of Christian woman, and it's like I'm learning to be soft, but I'm not naturally a very soft person. I'm pretty abrasive and funny and ridiculous. And we have this conversation, Reed and I, where it's like, okay, we're going to get married soon. I had just moved to Boise. I'm like unpacking my house, just moved to Boise. He's sitting on my couch and we're just talking about like when we're going to get married. And I had this intuitive knowing that I knew it was going to be March 14th, 2004. But he also said that he had an intuitive knowing. This was the beginning of competition, which I wish I would have known how to recognize competition. So there's a nougat for you. So he's like, you go first. And I'm like, no, you go first. And we go back and forth. And finally, I go first. And he got so upset because March 14th was literally like a few days away. And he was like, that can't happen. Like, no, 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 no. And he was like, it's supposed to be in like a couple years. And I'm like, okay. And as it worked out, it was like we either wouldn't get married for like 2 years or we would get married in 3 days. And so it was like, let's get married. We were already engaged. He had come out and asked me to marry him, and we just didn't have a date set yet. And so he planned our entire wedding in 3 days while I'm still unpacking the house. And the morning of the wedding, I was a little bit late because I was hooking up the washer and dryer, and I was starting a new house cleaning business because I needed income. And I was just like, I'm doing all the things. That's just how I am as a manifesting generator. I love to do, and I love being busy. And so he plans our wedding, and we just have probably his family, like 30 people there, because it was just a real quick wedding. Neither of us wanted anything big. I never dreamt of a big wedding. I never planned on even getting married and having kids. Like, I was just following what felt good and going on the journey. Like, I did not expect to be a single mom, and then getting married was so like whack to me. But it was all of his friends were there and all of his activism people. The person who the person who made our wedding official was actually a sidewalk counselor, is what they call them. That's a horrible term for them. They basically yell at people in front of abortion clinics and pray for people. He was the one who did our wedding, and it was so awkward. His parents and his siblings, like everyone looked like they were going to a funeral. They were so mad, which was incredibly weird because his family loved me prior. Like, his dad would call me one of his children, and me and his dad would talk for hours because we had a lot of things in common, but then a lot of things that were really weird. So his dad was very much an activist. He was an older man, just really extreme in his views. They got kicked out of the Mormon church when Reed was 13 because of their views on abortion were too extreme. And do you know how rough that is? Do you know how hard it is to get kicked out of the Mormon church? But his whole family did. And we got along with a lot of things, like not taking part in the education system, not taking part in Western medicine. Oh yeah, because I started undoing medicine after the piece of gauze in me with my C-section and then being on birth control. And I didn't even know if I could have kids. There was so much that went into him and I getting together, and we were so different and yet so similar. What I really couldn't see in hindsight was the difference of being raised within a patriarchal cult versus a matriarchal cult, and the hierarchy that happens. I guess I'm kind of telling you my healing journey along with this and what I've learned along the way, because there were just things that I couldn't see and recognize because I I wasn't conditioned in a patriarchal setting. I had like a male God, but very much a matriarchal system, where he had a full patriarchal system, and he was literally bred and trained to take down strong women. But I did not know this for another 20 years. So his dad and I, we get along great, but his views just continue to get more and more extreme. And he really liked me because I stood up for hard things until I was taking his favorite child. Reed was the favorite child of all of the kids because he was the oldest of the anointed real marriage. So he had like 5 or 6 kids. She had like 3 kids. They got married and had 5 kids. And Reed is the oldest of the 5 kids. He had always been homeschooled, or more like unschooled, like just indoctrinated so heavily into like Mormon cultish religion. And so him coming to Jesus really was like this freedom for him, but he didn't undo what was happening. So we get married and we go and stay with my mom for a few days in Florida. All 3 of us go on the honeymoon together, and she puts us up in Airbnb, or in a bed and breakfast, B&B. And she takes care of my boo, and life is pretty cool. Like, we're just young and in love, and everything is amazing. He moves into the apartment with me, and I immediately just have tons of friends because he's done so much activism. And there's all these, we were all just young and on fire for Jesus and like changing the world. And I start mentoring people, and I'm sharing parts of my story, and I'm being asked to be on stages and share my testimony, and I'm doing it and I'm loving it, and he's doing it with me. So we're both on stages, and that's why I use his name, because I can't tell my story without also telling his, because our story has been so intertwined for the last truly 22 years that in order for me to be me, he's intertwined his life with mine. So by the time we'd been married about 6 months, and I'm still going through the custody case, I'm like on round 2, but I maintain primary parent, and I'm learning law from just experience, just doing it. And that was really a lot of fun. Like, I had always studied the justice system, which is just such a crock to even call it a justice system, because it's just fucked up. But I'm dismantling one system after another, but yet I'm so on fire for Jesus that's kind of blinding everything. So when we first get pregnant, or when we first get married, I end up getting pregnant and having a miscarriage. And it just fucking wrecks me. And him, we were super excited. That's like the pro-life thing to do, is you have babies. And then everybody around us, like everyone started praying for me. And this was probably the darkest spiritual psychosis, religious psychosis that I've ever fallen into. I convinced myself, and everyone around me convinced me, that I was pregnant, and I was pregnant with twins. And for about 3 months, I behaved as though I was pregnant, even though I never got a positive pregnancy test. They would just pray over me, and everybody knew. They could see them, they could feel them. And there's like 15, 20 of us that are like forming this tight group. And somehow Reed and I are like the leaders of this thing, because we're the only married couple. And it's insane. And I am fully convinced that I am pregnant. And none of the tests were right. And they're like, it's wrong. It's just it's a spiritual attack. It's something, you just keep believing. And it wasn't until I went to the midwife that I was like, there's something really, really wrong. So we'll catch that next time.